Dave here. I've been asked a number of times about what kind of shop equipment, how big a shop do you need a shop to enjoy the hobby of garden railroading? And the answer is, well, I'll show you my shop. I'll talk about how I started, some of the equipment that I think is important to have, regardless of the size of your objective. Anyway, let's get started. Well, here we are in my shop. I started with a small oval, one engine, 3 cars, plus a caboose. And I used my kitchen counter as a means of having a place to work to change out couplers and things of that nature. Now I have a so-called shop. It's a 2-car garage. Most of the time I can only get 1 car area, and that's about 190 square feet. You're seeing that now. That's about the space of a one car garage. And then I have an area where all my equipment, or most of it, is stored when the cars are in the garage. I'm then short on places to work. Workbench, you may have seen that in earlier videos. Storage, train storage, some of my lumber. I use mostly several grades of plywood. Baltic birch is my favorite. More storage, some more equipment. And for lumber, this is over the second car. This is over the second car area. And it's mostly scrap, 2x4s, accessory pieces, things of that nature. Here we are with my equipment set up. Job site saw, extra workbench that's movable and has clamps, sanding device, bandsaw, miter saw, and depending whether you're in the U.S. or other parts of the country, depends on what you call this little rascal. You can call it a joiner, a planer, depends on where you are. Over here is a joiner. And a portable router table. Safety. Dust and all kinds of debris falls around. This is the minimum that you should be using for covering your mouth and nose. If you wear glasses, they should be a non-breakable form. But glassware, cover your eyes, very important. And ear protection. I use a set that has Bluetooth, so I can listen to music, podcasts, or things of that nature while I'm working. I also have learned that it's a smart idea to wear an apron. You'd be surprised how fast the part can fly through the air and hit you. This is great protection. The first piece of equipment is a table saw. The one I use is this rascal that I've had for many, many years. It's referred to as a job site portable table saw. It has miter, has a fence, has a movable plate, so that you have a reasonable piece of material that you can work with. This is an extra. We'll talk about a few pieces here, and then I'll tell you my recommendation. It has wheels. It has an adjustable aperture so that when you're running a piece of material through the blade, it has a place to go as opposed to just falling on the floor. If it falls on the floor, it could cause some damage to you and the blade. Also, the blade cover is critical. What they call a rising knife keeps the material that you're running separated so it doesn't regather and come kick you back. This is one of the most dangerous tools in the whole shop. It's dangerous for one primary reason, and that is that it's unplugged, so I'm not going to be in danger. The blade turns toward the operator. So when you're running a piece of material through, if it jams or collects or gets back together without a blade, it can kick back the piece, it'll rise and come back and hit you. That's why it's dangerous. That's why when you're running a piece of material, you always want to have something to hold the material that you're moving through the blade. And the blade cover is important also. It's fully adjustable. All the job site saws that I've seen, some are good, some are great, some are okay. All your adjustments are here. You can adjust this and make it then stationary. You have a scale on the side here, and probably the thing that causes the most grief for hobbyists is one of two things. If you're running a piece of material, you never use both of these. If you're running a piece of material through, you want the blade in whatever you're using as a guide to be parallel. So you need to measure that from some point. Your guide is probably a decent place to do that, making sure that from this point, because your blade should be parallel, you check that first. Then you make sure that your fence is correct. It can move either way, and either way, if it's not just absolutely parallel, you're not going to get a good piece of wood to work with. Same is true with trying to get a 90 degree when you're doing cross cutting. I use a little handmade attachment that has a blade cut through there, and I have a right angle device that I bring up and make sure that this and this is a 90 degree, so I'm going to get an absolute accurate cut. Well, absolute accurate. I'm going to get a reasonably accurate cut. It's awful to be able to have to work with a piece of wood, piece of material that's not square. Anyway, you don't have to spend a ton of money on a job site table saw, which is the classification that I recommend for any kind of hobbyist work that we do. Now, if you can get your hands on one and you have the space to mount it permanently, not mount it, but place it permanently in your shop, by all means go ahead and do it, because it will be a little more accurate. But this is probably the first piece of heavy equipment that you're going to be looking to purchase. The next piece of equipment is a bandsaw. The bandsaw is a lot safer, but it too has some of the characteristics of a table saw in that it has a fence and it has a miter that you can move back and forth to run material through, or you can run it through, taking both of these off, and run it through by hand, adjusting the guide down so that you have it's unplugged, by the way, so you can get to closer to the blade and have it more steadily adjusted. Anyway, table saw, strangely, was one of the last major pieces of equipment that I purchased. There's all kinds of brands, and I happen to like Win for this particular piece of equipment. By the way, the table saw is not available anymore, but I'll have links below that'll give you the various equipment and places you can go to check prices and perhaps purchase. Anyway, bandsaws come in a variety of sizes and shapes. Win, in my opinion, is an excellent choice for a hobbyist who doesn't want to spend a lot of money but wants a good and adequate bandsaw. The bandsaw is a lot safer than the table saw for one primary reason, and that is the blade runs down against the material, so it's not kicking it back to you, but it's forcing it closer to the table. If you decide you want a table saw, and it also depends on what you buy, depends on whether it's a 9-inch, 10-inch, 14-inch, and that has nothing to do with the rise and the availability to put a piece of material through the saw blade. It has to do with the distance that is available. This is 10 inches. You do not want a 9-inch. There's way too much material that's 8 inches or more that you're going to be working with, 8 to 10 inches. Larger than that, you can run it through the other side. But you want a 10-inch minimum in a bandsaw. And if you're going to be doing the kind of work that I'm starting to do, and that is more intricate cutting of work, you want two blades. You want one for cutting through material in quantities and in a straight line that may be thick wood, something larger or more heavy than a 3/4 inch piece of material. You want two blades, a small blade to do intricate work and a heavier blade to do heavier work. This little joiner, again, it's a Craftsman, as you can see. It has, I use two handles to move material through. It has a blade that runs circular. The purpose of this piece of equipment primarily is to get a 90-degree edge on a piece of material. From that side, you run material through, and the blade is going to cut. The fence needs to be at 90 degree, and that way you're going to get from a straight line here a 90-degree line by cutting the material. When you buy a piece of plywood or any kind of wood, you're rarely getting a piece that has anything that resembles a 90-degree square side. And I'll have more on that when I talk about running material and getting material ready to build houses, bridges, and things of that nature. Want a 45-degree cut? Want a 90-degree cut? Again, I've got a Craftsman, because I bought some of these pieces of equipment all at the same time. But this comes down against the piece of material, cuts it. This is set at a 45 degree right now, but you can get 90 or any other angle you want. Oddly, I don't really use this one very much, but when I do, it's an important piece of equipment. Another piece of equipment that is critical to the shop, in my opinion, is a shop vac. This is what I call a pretty decent one. That is a cheap one. Don't get it. You'll be sorry. That's a little minimum size Porter cable. This is a rigid, and I like it because the size of the opening pretty much fits most of the shop tools so that you can use it without an adapter. Sanding is another issue that most people overlook. You have to have some way to finish the surface of the product that you're making something from. This is my old one, Black & Decker. The trouble is that this doesn't have much in the way of vibration, so I have to keep moving my hand around in order to get the surface that doesn't show ridges or indents. An orbital sander is preferred, and I'll have a link below this video to show you it and where you can pick one up. Big box store for sure. On the other hand, a sanding machine is also an answer. It has a plate that runs and it stands up straight. It does curves here. You can move a piece of material through. This is a round orbital piece of sanding material. And you get all kinds of different grits for finishing or rough sanding. But this is a decent piece of equipment. Again, it's a Win product. They make a decent one, not a fabulous one. If you want just absolute the best that money can buy, I will put in the description below some of the things that I think are important in terms of price, quality, and you can make your own decision from that. Last of the large items is a portable work table. This brand is Pegasus. You can get them at big box stores, but I'll leave a link to it. It comes with dogs that you can put in here for you can adjust this any way you want for any size material, be it small, larger. It's a great piece of equipment, and it stores in a very small area. Folds up for storage, both sides. And you can buy multiple units that will link together so that you can keep them solid. It has little small trays for parts, tools. It's a great piece of equipment. One of the first I bought, other than using my kitchen counter. I think there's primarily 3 different types of garden railroaders. There's the holiday hobbyist. They have a Christmas tree often with the train as a circle or an oval running around the bottom. Their needs are pretty minimal. You need a place maybe to oil the wheels and keep track. The hobbyist is the one who needs the least amount of equipment. You may have to buy an additional piece of track here or there, or a little oil to oil the wheels and the motor. But pretty much all you need is a box and a closet to store the train set in when it's not in use. The next hobbyist is what I call the small needs hobbyist. They have maybe a large oval, a longer set train with engine and maybe 4 or 5 cars, a caboose. If it's a passenger car, maybe they have a Santa Fe Super Chief engine, 1B unit, and perhaps 3 passenger cars. They need a workbench with mostly hand tools, and we'll cover some of that later. Then there's what I call the endless hobbyist. That's most of the videos you see on our website. They're not finished. They look finished, but they're always being improved, changed, redone. I just saw one recently that was just a beautiful layout with 4 trains running. There were streams, rivers, a couple of tunnels, bridges, all being torn down because the hobbyist had a new vision, how to make it different, how to improve it. So this video that we're making today hopefully will address some of the needs of the endless hobbyist and the hobbyist who has a small layout, doesn't want a large layout, but wants to be more involved than just turning a switch to make the train go around in an oval. That's about it for this video. Next video will be on small tools, things you can do with a small tool, and anything else that you can think of to leave me a comment below. Please subscribe and do leave a comment. If there's things that you'd like to hear about, we'll take care of that too. Be well, stay safe. I'll see you on the next video.